feels stalled, without explanation. There are moments when life simply feels stuck. It's not a visible collapse. It's not a dramatic fall. It's something quieter. You wake up, fulfill your responsibilities, do what needs to be done. Yet inside there is this sense of standing still in front of a door that won't move. You know you're capable. You know you have faith. You know you're making the effort. And still, nothing opens. And that stagnation begins to weigh on your chest like a fatigue that sleep cannot fix. Maybe you've asked yourself quietly, almost with embarrassment, did I miss something? Did I make the wrong choice back then? Did I sabotage my own path? These questions don't shout. They whisper. And precisely because they whisper, they keep echoing inside. The mind tries to find logic. The heart tries to find comfort. And the body feels the impact. The shoulders grow tense. The breathing becomes shallow. The brain, wired to detect threats, starts interpreting every closed door as a sign of personal rejection, as if the delay were a sentence, as if not yet meant never. There is also the pain of opportunities that feel as though they were stolen, projects that were almost ready and collapsed, relationships that seemed promising and ended in betrayal, decisions made with confidence that later brought regret. And what hurts is not only the loss itself, it's the sense that something was taken, time was taken, energy was taken, trust was taken. You keep moving forward, but with a part of yourself more cautious, more restrained, as if you're trying not to feel too much so you won't get hurt again. But there is an ancient declaration that crosses centuries and speaks directly into this scenario. In Psalm 24, there is a summons to the gates. Lift up your heads, O gates. Be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of Glory may come in. Notice the image. It is not someone begging from the outside. It is a command directed at the doors themselves, as if the barriers were not final, as if they could respond to the right authority. That shifts the perspective, because perhaps a closed door is not a sign of rejection. Perhaps it is simply a structure waiting for the correct key, and sometimes the key has changed. A locked gate does not mean the house disappeared. It does not mean the purpose ceased to exist. Sometimes it only means the access needs to be adjusted. And when you meditate on that truth, something begins to reorganize inside you. It is not an explosion of naive optimism. It is a quiet reconstruction of trust. A trust that does not arise from pride, but from the awareness that not every blockage is abandonment. Not every delay is denial. Not every loss is permanent. Take a deep breath now. Feel the air entering slowly. Feel your chest expanding. The nervous system learns through repetition, and when we repeat thoughts of failure, it prepares to give up. But when we repeat truths grounded in hope, it begins to regulate. It begins to move out of threat mode and back into possibility mode. It is spiritual, yes, but it is also neurological. What you declare influences what you feel. What you feel influences what you do, and what you do influences the doors that move. Maybe today is not the day to force anything. Maybe it is the day to align, to recognize that even while standing in front of something closed, you're not forgotten. You're not invisible. You're not condemned to repeat losses. There are paths invisible to hurried eyes. There are answers that do not manifest in desperation, but in steady calm. Pray with me, not as someone begging in panic, but as someone positioning themselves with serene confidence, Lord of the gates and unseen pathways. If something was blocked by fear, reveal it. If something was stolen through deception, restore it in a way that strengthens me. Where I stood outside knocking in confusion, teach me whether to knock again, build anew, or walk elsewhere. Lift ancient doors that have resisted movement. Recover what aligns with your will, and close what would have diminished me. Allow these words to descend from your thoughts into your body. Feel them settling the anxiety. Feel them reorganizing your perspective. Because perhaps the greatest blockage is not in the door in front of you, but in the interpretation you built around it. And today, here, something begins to shift, not by force, not by desperation, but by the quiet authority of someone who understands that doors listen too. 2. The invisible block. When delay feels like rejection, there is a kind of pain that does not come from a direct no, but from a not yet, repeated so many times that it begins to sound like rejection. Prolonged delay has a quiet effect on identity. At first, you try again with hope. Then you try with caution. Then you try already expecting it not to work. And without realizing it, your heart starts bracing for impact before the answer even arrives. Not because you are weak, but because the human brain was designed to associate repeated obstacles with threat. It wants to protect you. It interprets delay as danger. It interprets closed doors as a sign that something is wrong with the one who is knocking. Many adults carry this interpretation as if it were a personal diagnosis. If I were truly ready, it would have already happened. If it were meant for me, it would have been. But as internal evidence against oneself, identity begins to shape itself around the waiting. Confidence begins to shrink, and what was merely a process starts to feel like a sentence. But there is an invisible error in that equation, interpreting every no as destiny instead of information. Not every blockage is final. Not every resistance is spiritual. Sometimes it is strategy. Sometimes it is a route adjustment. Sometimes it is simply the realization that we are pushing on the wrong side of the door. And this question changes everything. Is this door truly locked? Or am I trying to open it the wrong way? Imagine someone pushing on a sliding door. The person strains, insists, applies more pressure. They grow frustrated because nothing moves. The problem is not a lack of strength. It is direction. Some doors do not open with more effort. They open with understanding. And when you realize that, something inside you relaxes. Because maybe the delay is not saying you are not enough. Maybe it is saying adjust your movement. Neuroscience shows that when we face repeated frustrations, the brain's amygdala, responsible for detecting threats, becomes more sensitive. It starts reacting before logic even has a chance to enter the scene. That means that after a few closed doors, your body already feels rejection before your mind analyzes the situation. Your heart rate increases, your stomach tightens, your thinking becomes more rigid, and you begin to act not from possibility, but from defense. That is why it is so important to separate delay from identity. Delay is circumstance. Identity is essence. A process can be slow without you being inadequate. A cycle can be ending without you failing. Repeating that is not self-deception. It is emotional re-education. It is teaching your nervous system that not every season of waiting is abandonment. Maybe you are looking at something that has not yet happened and translating that as proof of incapacity. Maybe you are collecting no's as if they were definitions of who you are. But what if they are simply data? Data that indicates adjustment, data that indicates direction, data that is refining, not discarding. Breathe again. Feel the weight of that distinction. You are not the delay. You are not the closed door. You are not the attempt that did not work. You are greater than the process you are living through. And when that truth begins to stabilize within you, your posture changes. It is no longer the posture of someone begging for validation. It is the posture of someone investigating with maturity. Someone who calmly asks, am I facing a real blockage or simply a new way of happening? Sometimes the invisible is not a spiritual enemy. It is an automatic interpretation, and interpretations can be reviewed, adjusted, healed. And when the mind aligns, the path begins to reveal itself not as rejection, but as quiet redirection. 3. What was truly stolen? Money, time, or confidence? Not everything that was stolen from you has a value that shows up on a bank statement. Sometimes what was taken was invisible. It was the enthusiasm with which you used to begin something new. It was the lightness of trusting people. It was that spontaneous courage that made you say yes before fear had time to arrive. And when that is hit, the loss is deeper than it appears. Because money can be recovered, time can be reorganized, but shaken confidence requires internal reconstruction. Perhaps there was betrayal. Perhaps someone promised something and did not follow through. Perhaps you invested energy, resources, hope, and watched it all collapse. The impact was not only external. The brain registered the experience as a threat, and every time a new opportunity appears, the memory of the previous risk turns on a warning light. The amygdala whispers, "Be careful. Last time it hurt." And so you hesitate. You pull back an inch, then two. Then you decide it is better not to try. Notice how subtly this happens. You begin to overanalyze. You start looking for flaws before you even begin. You imagine negative scenarios with a richness of detail you do not use to imagine positive ones. This is not spiritual weakness. It is a protection mechanism. The problem is when protection becomes a prison, when the fear of losing again causes you to stop moving forward. So maybe the question is not only what was stolen, maybe the question is, what did I stop exercising after the loss? Was it boldness? Was it initiative? Was it the willingness to expose yourself? Because many times, the greatest damage is not the opportunity that was lost. It is the movement that was never attempted again. There is a counterintuitive insight here. Recovering courage may be more important than recovering the original opportunity. That specific project may not return. That door may not reopen. But the ability to try again, to trust with discernment, to act with wisdom, that can be restored. And when that is restored, you do not return to where you were. You move forward, more aware. Think of a tree struck by lightning. The impact is real. The damage is visible. But if the root remains alive and the wood does not rot from the inside, it can continue growing, perhaps with a scar, perhaps with a different shape, but still growing. The problem is not the scar. It is the silent decay that happens when pain is not processed. Maybe today is the moment to identify a small risk you have been postponing. not something gigantic, not a decision that changes everything at once, just one step, a conversation you have been avoiding, a project you never resumed, an idea left in the drawer because last time it didn't work. Choose something small enough not to paralyze you, but significant enough to signal to your brain that you are still alive, that you are still capable, that you are not defined by the loss. When you take a conscious step, even a small one, something happens internally. The nervous system learns that risk is not an automatic synonym for disaster. It begins to recalibrate, and that recalibration is spiritual as well. Because faith is not the absence of memory of pain. It is the decision not to allow pain to dictate the future. Repeat to yourself calmly, it was not only money, it was not only time, it was confidence. And confidence can be rebuilt. It can be rebuilt. It can be rebuilt. Not in the same naive way as before, but in a way that is more solid, more lucid, more aligned. What was stolen may have been significant, but what remains within you is greater, and the courage that seemed lost may not be dead. It may simply be waiting for a safe environment to reappear. Today, perhaps, that environment begins to form inside you. For the myth of open doors, being always comfortable, there is a widely accepted idea, almost automatic, that when a door is right, it will come accompanied by immediate peace, ease, and constant emotional confirmation, as if the aligned path were always smooth, as if what comes from God would never challenge, never demand, never tighten the heart before expanding it. But that expectation, though comfortable, can deeply confuse us. Many biblical stories show doors that opened, but opened into responsibility, not rest, opened into growth, not applause. The human mind, however, tends to confuse comfort with confirmation. If it is easy, it must be right. If it is difficult, it must be wrong. Yet growth is rarely comfortable at the beginning. The brain interprets the unknown as a threat, even when that unknown is evolution. The body reacts with tension. Doubt appears. And then we think, maybe this isn't for me. But what if the question is not, is this comfortable? But, does this expand my integrity or merely massage my ego? There is a subtle but profound difference. Some opportunities make us look bigger in the eyes of others, yet shrink us on the inside. Others challenge us, expose our insecurity, place us on unfamiliar ground, but strengthen who we truly are. Open doors do not always lead to decorated rooms. Sometimes they lead to training grounds. And in a training ground, you do not feel ready all the time. You feel under construction. There is effort, there is repetition, there is discomfort, but there is also transformation. And transformation rarely happens in completely predictable zones. When you expect every right door to bring instant peace, you may end up closing paths that only required initial adaptation. You may interpret the butterflies in your stomach as a sign of error, when in fact they are a sign of growth. The body feels tension because it is learning something new. The brain creates resistance because it is stepping out of an old pattern. That does not mean it is wrong. It means it is different. This does not mean that every discomfort is divine confirmation. It is not about romanticizing suffering. It is about discernment, about noticing whether the difficulty is wounding your essence or strengthening your character, whether the open door is asking you to compromise your values or to mature your capacities. Perhaps some doors you rejected in the past were not wrong. They were simply demanding. Perhaps you were waiting for a sense of tranquility that would never arrive before the first step. And that is human. We want guarantees. We want clear signs. We want certainty before movement. But often, clarity comes along the path, not before it. Take a deep breath and think about something that appears open before you, yet brings a slight discomfort. Ask yourself with calm honesty, does this threaten who I am, or invite me to grow beyond who I have been so far? That question shifts the focus from fear to awareness, from impulse to discernment. True doors are not always soft to the touch. Sometimes they are heavy, sometimes they creak, sometimes they require initial strength. But that does not mean they do not lead to the right place. And when you learn to differentiate comfort from alignment, you begin to walk with greater maturity, not guided only by what is easy, but by what is true. 5. The silent self-sabotage of over-spiritualizing inaction. There is a kind of waiting that looks like faith, but underneath is refined fear. It is not a conscious refusal to act. It is an elegant justification for remaining still. I'm waiting for the right sign. When it's the perfect time, everything will fall into place. And meanwhile, days pass. Opportunities cool off. Energy diminishes, and inertia begins to disguise itself as spiritual prudence. It is important to say this carefully. Waiting can be wisdom, but waiting indefinitely without any practical movement is often just an attempt to avoid the discomfort of risk. The brain prefers the safety of the familiar, even if the familiar is stagnant. It creates convincing arguments to stay where it is. And when those arguments adopt spiritual language, they become even harder to question. There is a subtle difference between trusting and hiding. Trusting involves active peace. Hiding involves temporary relief. When you trust, you pray, and then take steps proportional to what you already understand. When you hide, you pray, but use prayer as a substitute for the action you already know you need to take. When you observe people who have moved through seasons of blockage and truly rebuilt what seemed lost, there is a clear pattern. They combined prayer with structure. It was not just waiting, it was alignment. Praying to adjust the heart, planning to organize the mind, acting to move reality. This simple triad, pray, plan, proceed, creates flow. Small, but consistent. Think of the image of Noah building before the rain. There were no visible signs in the sky. There was no climatic confirmation. There was instruction, and there was action. The construction preceded the evidence, and that is deeply spiritual and deeply practical at the same time. Faith did not cancel the work. Faith directed the work. Perhaps you are waiting for a perfect feeling of certainty before you begin, but absolute certainty rarely precedes movement. What usually comes is enough conviction to take the next step, not all the steps. And when you move, even with a slight tremor in your hands, something happens internally. The brain shifts from passive mode into creator mode. The energy changes, the posture changes, the internal narrative changes. Ask yourself with gentle honesty, am I waiting for direction or avoiding responsibility? It is not a question to accuse. It is a question to liberate, because if you realize you already know what needs to be done, even if it is small, you regain power. You stop being a spectator of your own destiny and return to being a participant, maybe The door does not need more intercession. Maybe it needs a hand to turn the handle. Maybe the answer you're asking for has already been given in the form of capacity, ability, or a discrete opportunity. And when you decide to act with humility and consistency, something aligns. Not because you forced heaven, but because you cooperated with what was already available. Action is not opposition to faith. Action is the expression of faith. Small, consistent, conscious. And when prayer and movement walk together, doors that seemed immovable begin to reveal that they were never locked, only waiting for initiative. Emotional clutter. As a closed door, sometimes the door is not locked. The hallway is blocked, and that blockage is not made of wood or iron. It is made of accumulated resentment, silent comparisons, regrets that repeat like an echo. Each unresolved disappointment occupies mental space. Each internal dialogue left unfinished consumes energy. And when the mind is too full, even clear opportunities seem distant. The human brain has a limit to its processing capacity. When we keep ruminating on the past, replaying conversations, recreating scenarios of what could have been different, cognitive flexibility decreases, creativity diminishes. The ability to see new possibilities becomes compromised, not because you are incapable, but because your energy is being used to sustain undigested memories. It is like trying to walk down a hallway filled with boxes scattered across the floor. The door may be open at the end, but you can barely move forward. Ask with calm honesty, is my internal dialogue louder than my direction? Sometimes the critical voice that repeats inside us occupies so much space that there is not enough silence left to perceive new opportunities. I should have done it differently. I cannot afford to make another mistake. Others are already so far ahead. These phrases may seem harmless, but repeated daily, they shape perception, and perception shapes decision. There is a simple but powerful exercise. Before planning any new step, set aside 10 minutes to write down everything that still hurts, without censorship, without filtering. Put on paper the frustrations, losses, anger, fear. The physical act of writing helps the brain organize diffuse emotions. It signals to the nervous system that the experience has been acknowledged. And when something is acknowledged, it begins to lose the disproportionate force it once had. This is not about pretending it did not hurt. It is about preventing the pain from continuing to occupy the center of the room. Resentment is heavy. Comparison is heavy. Constant guilt is heavy. And excessive weight reduces movement. When you create internal space, something shifts in your posture. The breathing becomes deeper. The thinking becomes clearer. Hope stops feeling forced and begins to feel natural. Imagine a hallway being slowly organized, box by box removed, dust being cleaned, light entering through the windows. The door at the end may have always been there, but now there is passage. Now there is flow. Now there is possibility. Cleaning the interior is not a fragile gesture. It is an act of maturity. It is recognizing that you cannot control every external door, but you can organize the internal space that leads to them. And when that space becomes lighter, discernment increases. You begin to realize that some doors had been open far longer than you imagined. You simply could not walk through them. Do not rush this process. Emotional release does not happen under pressure. It happens through permission. Permission to feel. Permission to process. permission to move forward without carrying everything that already was. And as the internal hallway clears, the sense of blockage begins to diminish. Not because the world changed immediately, but because you changed the way you walk within it. 7. Why restoration rarely looks like the original loss. There is a silent expectation that often holds us captive more than the loss itself. The idea that restoration means receiving back exactly what was taken, the same opportunity, the same position, the same relationship, the same scenario, as if healing were synonymous with replication. But life rarely works that way, and when we insist that restitution must have the exact same shape as what was lost, we may fail to recognize the new season that has already begun. The human mind seeks familiarity. It associates safety with what it already knows. So when something is lost, the brain tries to mentally reconstruct the previous version as if it were the only acceptable format of recovery. Yet true growth almost never returns you to the exact point where you once stood. It matures you first. It expands your awareness. It adjusts your perception. And only then does it release new resources. There are people who lost a business and years later found a vocation far more aligned with their essence. There are those who were rejected from a specific opportunity and later discovered a path that required exactly the character that rejection developed in them. In the moment of loss, none of that is visible. What you feel is emptiness, injustice, interruption. But in the silent process of maturity, something is being reorganized. Restoration rarely begins on the outside. It begins within. It begins in the way you see yourself after the fall. It begins in the ability not to define yourself by what was interrupted. It begins when you accept that what comes next may have a different appearance, a different rhythm, a different context, and still be an answer. There is a counterintuitive revelation here. Sometimes what was lost was only the first version of the promise, not the final one. The pain you faced was not merely a detour. It was invisible preparation, and preparation is not always comfortable. It dismantles illusions. It corrects naivete. It strengthens boundaries. It teaches discernment. If you insist that the new door must look identical to the old one, you may reject something better simply because it does not match the memory. That is why it is so important to evaluate new opportunities without constantly comparing them to the old ones. Constant comparison distorts perception. It places the past as the absolute standard and prevents you from seeing the quality of the present. Think of a seed that was stolen or destroyed. That does not cancel the existence of other planting seasons. It does not cancel the fertility of the soil. It does not cancel the possibility of a different harvest, perhaps even a more abundant one. The loss of one seed does not define the end of your capacity to produce. It only marks the end of a specific season. Perhaps what you call delay is simply transition. Perhaps what you call injustice is invisible redirection. Not because the pain was not real. It was, but because the final meaning has not yet been fully revealed. Take a deep breath and consider the possibility that the restoration coming your way will not resemble what was taken. It may be more aligned, more stable, more coherent with who you became after the loss. And when you allow the new to have its own shape, without demanding that it copy the past, something inside you relaxes. Rigid expectation gives way to mature openness. Restoration is not returning to what was. It is advancing with what was learned, and that can be more powerful than any literal replacement. 8. The courage to knock again after embarrassment. There is a type of silence that is born from embarrassment. It's not a lack of desire. It's not a lack of capability. It's the memory of having tried publicly and failed. The remembrance of having believed in something, announced it, invested energy, and then having to deal with looks, questions, interpretations. The failure itself hurts. But what often paralyzes you is the exposure. After an experience like that, something inside you makes a promise. I will never put myself in that position again. And that promise feels protective. It feels like maturity. It feels like prudence. But over time, it turns into withdrawal. You begin to avoid new attempts that could generate growth, not because they aren't possible, but because you fear looking foolish twice. Psychologically, the brain links social embarrassment with threat. And for the nervous system, social threat can feel as intense as physical danger. That's why your body reacts with tension just at the thought of repeating the experience. Your stomach tightens. Your mind anticipates negative scenarios, and you decide it's better to stay silent, better not to knock again, better not to ask again, better not to expose yourself again. But there is a quiet strength in persistence that hardly gets celebrated. Not the dramatic sort of persistence, full of speeches and applause. The quiet persistence. The kind that happens away from the spotlight. The kind that decides to try again, even when no one is watching. In Scripture, many stories of persistence are not loud. They are consistent. They are firm. They carry confidence even when no one validates them. Maybe there is a conversation you've avoided out of pride, an offer you decided not to resubmit, a request you never made again because last time it was ignored. What would happen if you revisited these things with maturity, not with desperation, not to prove something to someone else, but to prove to yourself that one experience does not define your identity? Imagine a musician who plays a wrong note in front of an audience and then decides never to play again. The entire music stops because one note was off key. But the truth is this: one note doesn't cancel the entire song. That moment becomes part of learning. It adjusts technique, it sharpens attention, and when the musician plays again, the melody becomes more conscious, more connected, more solid. You are not the mistake. You are not the failed attempt. You are not the opinions others formed about what happened. You are bigger than the awkward moment. And the courage to knock again does not come from the absence of fear. It comes from the decision that fear will not have the final say. Take a deep breath and visualize the door ahead of you. Maybe you've knocked on it before. Maybe it stayed closed. But today, you are not knocking the same way you did before. You are more mature, more aware, more aligned. Sometimes the second knock does not meet the same circumstance because you are no longer the person you were then. Persistence is not blind insistence. It is acting again with renewed discernment. It is trying again with added wisdom. It is allowing the past experience to refine you, not paralyze you. The embarrassment may have been real. The awkwardness may have been deep, but they do not have to become a permanent sentence. There is strength in those who choose to continue. There is dignity in those who learn and return. And sometimes the door that seemed closed was not rejecting you. It was waiting for you to return changed. 9. When God closes doors, For protection, not punishment. Not every closed door was theft. Not every barrier was an attack. Some were silent protection. Yet when we stand on the outside, feeling frustration and loss, it's hard to see it that way. The mind immediately interprets the closure as punishment, personal failure, or an unfair delay. Rarely do we consider that perhaps we were spared from something we could not yet fully understand. There is a discerning question that can shift perspective. Did that closed door preserve my integrity? Perhaps, if it had opened, you would have accepted conditions that compromised your values. Perhaps you would have entered an unstable environment, emotionally toxic or financially insecure. Perhaps you would have gained something impressive externally, but misaligned internally. Many opportunities seem perfect at first. They promise rapid growth, recognition, expansion, but over time, they reveal instability, hidden pressures, or demands that erode your essence. Looking back with maturity, we often realize that certain no's were actually deliverances. At the moment, they felt like pure frustration. The human brain tends to focus on immediate loss, not the risk that was avoided. It registers what was denied, but cannot immediately calculate the invisible harm that was prevented. This is why cultivating discernment is essential, not to justify disappointment, but to honestly evaluate, if that door had opened, would I be whole today? Or would I have fragmented, trying to sustain something misaligned with me? Try a simple but profound exercise. List situations from which you were spared, relationships that ended before causing greater harm, opportunities that didn't materialize but later revealed problems for others, paths that were interrupted but eventually showed structural fragility. Doing this begins to train your mind to see protection where you once saw only frustration. Imagine driving at night and encountering an unexpected red light. You feel irritated. You're in a hurry. You want to go. But ahead, invisible to your eyes, a bridge is unstable. The signal isn't punishment, it's preservation. The problem is that we cannot see the bridge in the moment. All we see is the interruption. This doesn't mean every closed door is automatically good. Some result from poor choices. Others arise from external circumstances. But some, yes, are mercy in disguise. Learning to distinguish this brings peace. Not naive peace, but peace grounded in the trust that not every blockage is abandonment. Perhaps you are mourning something that didn't happen. Perhaps you are carrying resentment for an opportunity that never materialized. And perhaps, just perhaps, that closure protected something far more valuable: your emotional health, your identity, your faith, your character. When you begin to consider this possibility, the weight lessens, the narrative shifts, the heart calms. The question changes from, why was this closed, to from what was I spared? Sometimes the closed door is the quietest form of care. Recognizing this does not erase past pain, but it transforms its meaning. 10. Conclusion: walking through doors without losing yourself. We arrive at the most delicate point of all: moving through doors without losing who you are. Because in the end, it's not just about doors opening, it's about remaining whole as you walk, about not negotiating your essence for access, about not letting urgency replace discernment. Return in your mind to Psalm 24. Lift up your heads, O gates, that the King of glory may enter. There is something powerful in that image. Doors respond to legitimate authority, not to desperate force. They rise before the right presence. This means that true opening does not come from anxiety, but from alignment, not from desperation, but from a grounded identity. Along this journey, perhaps you've noticed that not every blockage was spiritual. Some were emotional, others were distorted interpretations, others were deliverances, and some, yes, were invitations to mature. The greatest blessing is not merely seeing doors open, it is developing enough discernment to know which to walk through and which to leave behind. There is something deeper than recovering opportunities. It is reclaiming internal stability, walking toward what opens without losing your peace, understanding that if a door resists, it does not redefine your value, knowing you do not need to shrink to fit into a space that does not honor who you are. Spiritual maturity is not measured by how many doors have opened. It is measured by how much of you remained intact while waiting, by realizing that true unlocking begins within, when fear is confronted, when shame is processed, when resentment is released, when action replaces inertia, when rigid expectation gives way to mature trust. Breathe deeply once more. Feel the weight that may have lifted during this reflection. Sense the clarity beginning to form. It is not euphoria. It is stability, not urgency, but firmness. You do not need to rush toward every door. You only need to walk with awareness. Pray with me again, not as one begging, but as one aligned. King of glory, if doors have resisted me, search my heart before you move them. Remove fear that paralyzes and pride that rushes. Restore what was stolen in ways that refine my character. Open what aligns with truth. Close what disguises danger. Let the gates that matter recognize your authority over my life. Allow these words to echo beyond this moment. Let them become an anchor when anxiety returns, a filter when new opportunities appear, a foundation when old frustrations resurface in memory. Perhaps the greatest unlocked blessing is not the recovered opportunity. Perhaps it is a steadier soul walking toward it, a calmer mind, a less reactive heart, an identity less dependent on external approval. Doors may open, doors may close, seasons may change. But when you learn to walk with discernment, courage, and peace, no circumstance can steal who you have become. And that is what truly remains.